Pictures outside the Supreme Court here in Washington, D.C., where justices on the High Court this morning are prepared to hear a case regarding sexual orientation discrimination. People have been here on the sidewalks, some for over 24 hours, to get a brief few moments of the oral argument in the case. Masterpiece Cakes v. Colorado Civil Rights Commission. Two men who plan to marry in Massachusetts asked a baker in Colorado to create a cake for their wedding reception. The owner of the cake shop refused to make the cake, citing religious beliefs. The men sued the baker. They won in lower courts, and the baker appealed to the lower court ruling to the Supreme Court. The Associated Press writing today, the argument is the first involving gay rights since the Supreme Court ruled in 2015 that states could prevent same-sex couples from marrying. The Trump administration is supporting Mr. Phillips, the baker, in his argument that he can't be forced to create a cake that violates his religious beliefs. It appears to be the first time the federal government has asked the justices to carve out an exception from an anti-discrimination law. The case begins at 10 Eastern this morning. The oral argument will be released on Friday. C-SPAN will have it for you at 8 p.m. Eastern on Friday.
West Virginia. I put the train in
Denver, Fort Collins. They're trying to play
that one too? Or are you giving me the big one?
I'll give you the big one. I'm not photos for the
That's great. Alright, all smiles. All smiles. Maybe I'm camera anyway.
Caesar.
Oh, yeah.
No, no. Say, spiritually part of that group.
Anyone want to open
all the way, it'll just shut off. It's a weird thing. And then I think great. That's all you have to do. And then you can just walk away.
Yes, indeed. Almost got my back. Go, let's take off guard. And then
line to get into the Supreme Court this morning is long and getting longer as people are hoping to get in here to some of the oral argument in the case of Masterpiece Cakes v. Colorado Civil Rights Commission. Two men who planned to marry in Massachusetts asked a baker in Colorado to create a cake for their wedding reception. The owner of the cake shop refused to make the cake, citing religious belief. The men sued, and they won in lower courts. The baker did appeal to the lower court ruling to the Supreme Court, and the court will hear the oral argument this morning. According to SCOTUS blog, who covers the court, the question that the justices will grapple with today is whether applying Colorado's public accommodations law to compel the petitioner to create expression that violates his sincerely held religious beliefs about marriage violates the free speech or free exercise clauses of the First Amendment. Again, the oral argument for the case begins this morning at 10 Eastern. It'll be released on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and C-SPAN will have it for you as it's released.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Jack is his attorney.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I said good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name is the Reverend Naomi Washington Leaphart. I'm the Faith Work Director at the National LGBTQ Task Force. And I'm delighted to be here this morning to offer words of prayer for this rally, words of blessing for this mighty resistance. But before I do that, I want to take a moment to declare that for me, this is personal. I join you today because it's personal. It's personal because the promise that the United States Constitution makes to me, a black, queer, same-sex married, co-parenting woman, is threatened with each attempt to make discrimination a protected right. It's personal because my own deep commitment to a justice-seeking faith is actually undermined by every attempt to use religion, my own religion, to deny and abandon human beings who are holy in God's eyes. Amen. I'm thinking this morning of my grandmother, the one who taught me how to pray. One of her favorite prayers was a song that says, "Let the works I've done speak for me. Let the works I've done speak for me." She understood that the best sign of her faith, the best demonstration of her belief, was not in the eloquence of her words, but in the righteousness of her actions. Faith to my grandmother wasn't religious dogma or doctrine or memorized Bible verses. She lived her faith and let her actions speak for themselves. Well, there are some whose actions are speaking right in this building today. Their actions reflect a narrow faith, a restrictive faith, a faith anchored in rejection and not welcome. But I'm so glad today that their actions aren't the only ones that speak. Amen. We are working too. We are living out our beliefs too. So I stand here to pray like my grandmother taught me, because it's personal. And I can feel the chilly energy here. Is it personal for you too? Yes. Yeah, it's personal for all of us who stand to be dismissed and ignored by those who want to invoke God when they don't agree or they don't understand. But we say this morning, not today. We will not stand by while our rights are eroded before our eyes, not today. So let us take a moment to hold space for contemplation, to draw from our sources of strength and hope, a moment to pray. Oh God, oh Creator, oh Spirit of life, message of truth, wind of revolution, we invite your inspiration into our midst this morning. Soothe our aching hearts as we remember why we are here. Because our communities have been hurt and shamed and embarrassed and sent away. We pray for courage to keep us poised to resist. Give us the endurance to speak when others try to drown out our voices. Make us the divine interruption to all of these attempts to use the government to exclude and punish those who have been denied justice for way too long. Let our work speak for us, oh God. Let our work of protest speak for us. Let our work of organizing speak for us. Let our work of coalition building speak for us. Let our work of revolutionary faith speak for us. Beyond these walls of the Supreme Court of the United States, let our work speak. We're here to turn over these tables of discrimination. We're here to fight back against bullying done in God's name. We're here to denounce any notion of piety that compels hospitals and businesses and social service agencies to turn people away. Let our work speak for us. I pray this morning for all of us who might be feeling tired or cynical or full of despair. Turn our despair into righteous indignation. Revive us so that our exhaustion doesn't overwhelm us. Restore our hope in the promise of true freedom. Remind us that true freedom is a freedom that delights in other human beings, and that freedom is possible. Make a deposit in this building today, a deposit of integrity and compassion, so that all people who have a stake in this case, people of color, LGBTQ people, women, disabled people, poor people, disenfranchised people, people of faith, people of moral conscience, all people can live full and flourishing lives according to your intent. And keep us bound together, not just today, but every day, in the struggle for justice. I pray these words of encouragement as we continue to do this holy work that speaks for us. In the name of revolution, I pray, amen. Amen. And so it is. Not today. Not today. Not today. Not today.
Not today.
Not today.
Not today.
Amen.
Amen. All right.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here this morning. My name is Ian Thompson, and I'm from the ACLU. In 2012, our clients, Dave Mullins and Charlie Craig, along with Charlie's mom, visited Masterpiece Cakeshop to order a cake for their wedding reception. Before even discussing the design of the cake, the owner told them that he wouldn't sell them a cake because they are a same-sex couple. Charlie's mom later said, "I just sat there in disbelief. All of the levity that we felt on the drive to the bakery was gone. As I left that bakery, my heart was breaking for my son and his fiancée. What should have been a joyous occasion had turned into a humiliating occasion." The case that the Supreme Court will hear this morning is about one thing: discrimination, plain and simple. A ruling for Masterpiece Cakeshop would turn our Constitution's promise of equal treatment under the law on its head. It would have dangerous implications that go far beyond LGBT people, including for people of color, members of minority faiths, women, and people with disabilities. We cannot go back to the days when businesses displayed signs in their windows that said, "Your kind, not served here." Our Constitution does not protect this kind of discrimination. As a nation, we decided more than a half-century ago that businesses that open their doors to the public should be open to everyone on the same terms, and that includes customers who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. In America, no one should ever be turned away from a business, denied service, fired from their job, or evicted from their home simply because of who they are or whom they love. Today, the Supreme Court must once again reaffirm our country's promise of equal treatment under the law for everyone. Today, inside this building, the ACLU will be arguing to make sure that it does. Thank you for being here. Thank you for standing with Dave and Charlie and all of those fighting for equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Ian. My name is Rachel Tiven from Lambda Legal. And this case is not about a cake. It is about licensing cradle-to-grave discrimination against lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. Lambda Legal, which defends and protects LGBT people from 6 offices nationwide, speaks today for the thousands of people who contact our legal help desk every year. These are LGBT people who have been shunned and denied service because of who they are, literally from birth to death and everything in between. Lambda Legal and Family Equality Council reviewed more than 1,000 reports of discrimination and refusal by businesses large and small at every stage of life. We heard from people who were denied service in pregnancy when a midwife for prenatal care, meeting a midwife for prenatal care and being turned away by her because she said, as a Christian woman, I cannot work with you. Or signing up for childbirth class and being told that the other couples wouldn't be comfortable with a lesbian couple in the group. Children of LGBT parents are discriminated against literally from before they are born. From prenatal care through early childhood and into school, discrimination against parents harms children. Parents call us about pediatricians who refuse to treat their child because they say that a gay couple cannot be the real parents. And daycare centers that won't let them register because same-sex couples are not allowed. And then at the end of our lives, at death, funeral homes, like the funeral home that turned away our client in Mississippi.
Yes, my husband is right up here, so I want to make sure that you mind visiting.
Well, good morning, everybody. There's some people here who love the Constitution. Some people here who love some justice. Right. We are excited to be here. I'm Ryan Bomberger of the Radiance Foundation. We are hosting this along with Alliance Defending Freedom. And so many other organizations here. This is amazing. I love some of the signage here. Can we just all say this together and say, we got your back, Jack? Say it again, we got your back, Jack? You know, it is an honor to introduce a lot of amazing people who are willing to stand for what is right and still love people at the same time. That's what this is all about. It's not about hate. You can disagree passionately about things and still love one another, and that's what this is all about. I'm honored to introduce a very talented young lady. Her name is Jessica Haas. She's America's first female speed painter. She's actually right here, so for those of you who can't see over in this corner, you might want to see some of the amazing stuff. But Jessica's got a few words that she's going to share with us before she engages in this phenomenal painting here that will happen right here. Jessica, welcome. How about give her a hand?
Hi, I'm Jessica Haas, and my speed painting career actually began in 2013 when I took a risk to paint Jesus Christ as my talent for a talent competition. And it was very interesting because I took a risk to express my faith. And in that time, I was scared to make that commitment, but I felt very compelled and inspired to do so because I was teaching a group of young girls, and I was going through a leadership book that said, it was teaching me that, you know, if you can't take a risk for your faith, then you can't expect the youth that you lead to do so either. And so I felt inspired to take a leap of faith and to paint Jesus on a secular stage. And I knew that the judges I'd be performing before might not agree with what I painted, and I knew it could cost me winning the competition, but I chose to proceed anyway because it wasn't about whether or not it offended people, but it was because it was who I was. And if it costed me a loss, then I earned every inch of it, and I was proud to do so. But to my surprise, I ended up winning talent. It launched my speed painting career, and now a lot of the girls in the Miss America organization paint to express themselves. And so it's really cool, and they paint Jesus all over the place, and it's really neat to see how the Lord has really used it. And so today, it's just something that I'm so excited that I get to be a part of, and I'm excited to share my talents with you. But something that I look back on now is that, you know, then when I expressed that talent, it was a risk, but it shouldn't have to be a risk. It should be something that doesn't have to be bold. Just because we express ourselves freely and because of the things that we believe in, it should just be beautiful. And so I'm here to stand with y'all today, and I'm grateful wonderful to be here. So thank you for having me.
Just to emphasize, she's going to be creating live art right here. It's all going to unfold, so you're going to want to take a look at this over here throughout the next few hours. Jessica, thank you so much. You know, it's an amazing thing because there is a cost when you stand for what is right, but there's also a beautiful benefit when you stand for what is right. Next up, we have Jennifer Marshall. She is the Vice President of the Institute of Family, Community, and Opportunity at the Heritage Foundation. Hi, Jennifer.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be out. It's great to be here with all these creative artists. And what we are doing today, I'm going to pull this, thank you. What's happening here in front of the Supreme Court is a story of what's going on inside the court as well. You see all kinds of free speech here, right? Yeah. We see all kinds of creative expression of our viewpoints. And we love, on both sides of this issue, we love the fact that we have free speech. And wouldn't it be odd if someone came along and made us exchange signs and express a viewpoint that we don't believe in? We would reject that idea. Well, that's the common sense idea that is behind what Jack Phillips is asking the court to do today. Jack is simply asking the Supreme Court to protect his freedom of speech as a creative professional so that he doesn't have to express a message in his cake design that conflicts with his religious convictions about marriage. That freedom of expression is something that all creative artists value, no matter what their political or religious viewpoints. Under the First Amendment, government cannot force creative professionals to express messages against their will. The First Amendment guarantees our freedom of religion. These two fundamental freedoms of religion and speech, along with the other freedoms that our Constitution guarantees, these are what tolerance is all about. These are the guarantees that allow us to coexist in harmony.
Discrimination has no place in our country. We hope the Supreme Court will too, when it makes its final determination in this case. We will be open for all in this country. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Steny Hoyer, and 750,000 Americans have sent me here to raise their voice. Equal justice under the law. Amen. Equal. The same. Jefferson said it not as inclusively as he should have, but so inclusively for his time, way ahead of his time. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and all women, he didn't say women, but he should have, are created equal, not by the Constitution, not by the majority vote, but by God, he said, with equal rights for all. This building is created to protect those rights, because although they may be self-evident, they are not self-executing. 35 members of the United States Senate have signed an amicus brief to the Supreme Court and said, uphold the lower court. This is discrimination. It should not be allowed. 174 members of the House of Representatives have signed an amicus and said equal justice under the law. I went to the Maryland State Senate in January of 1967. Shortly thereafter, there was a case in the Supreme Court. And on June 12, 1967, in Loving versus Virginia, the Supreme Court said you cannot discriminate. You cannot say because somebody is of one race that they cannot marry somebody of another race. It is their right to do that. So the court has spoken on this issue. And hopefully this court will reemphasize that central tenet of America, that central tenet of our Declaration, that central tenet of most of our faiths that say, treat one another as we would want to be treated. Today, the Supreme Court oral arguments have in a case that will have bearing on the very meaning of equality and equal access in this country. This case is about discrimination, pure and simple. This case is about making a U-turn on our commitment to equal justice for all. It's about whether a business can say, I don't want to serve LGBT Americans, or African Americans, or Hispanic Americans, or Jewish Americans, or women, or anyone else that I don't want to serve. In the 60s, we said, that's not America. That's not our principle. That's not our objective. That's not our vision. That's not what we believe is fair and equal. Nobody should be allowed to be denied service, be fired from a job, or be evicted from a home because of who they are. This case isn't really about cake. It's about access, equality, respect, and yes, human dignity. And more than half a century of precedent is on our side. So I'm proud to stand here with all of you. Just as I was proud to sign the amicus brief in this case with 173 other House Democrats. I am confident that the justices will reach the right decision in this case and reaffirm that every American deserves to be treated with respect, dignity, equality, whether as an employee, a tenant, or as a customer. We will raise our voices. We know there are voices raised to discriminate. We know there are voices raised to go back to the past where people were treated disparately, unequally, unfairly. We will not allow that to happen this day or any day. God bless you. Godspeed. Keep on keeping on.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Diana DeGette. I'm the Congresswoman from Denver, Colorado. And I want to tell you, I'm not here just for LGBTQ equality. I'm also here as a proud Coloradoan to say our doors are open. Our doors are open to every man, woman, and child in this country. And our doors are open to everyone who wants to express their love for each other. Now, I want to tell you, I'm very proud. My daughter just got married. But I do want to tell you something. The wedding cake was not a central part of the religious ceremony, okay? And I want to tell you something else. As my wonderful leader, Steny Hoyer, just said, this was decided in the 60s, friends. This was decided in the 60s. Here's a sign, and there's one too. It's not about the cake. We know it. They know it. I hope the Supreme Court knows it today. It's about discrimination, and we are going to stop that, and we are going to stop that now. When I was elected to the Colorado legislature in 1992. Some of you remember 1992. That was the year of Amendment 2 in Colorado. Remember that? Colorado became known as the hate state, which as a fourth-generation Coloradoan and a strong supporter of LGBTQ rights, I was appalled. I was appalled at these actions, and I was appalled at my state. But I fought My family fought, my friends fought, Coloradoans and Americans fought day in and day out to stop this hate, and you know what? We won. Today, we'll hear this argument in the Supreme Court. I have faith in our system. I have faith in our court. I believe that our rights will be upheld, but if they're not, we will wake up tomorrow and we will fight again. Because ultimately, full rights for every American is what we're here for. So let's not forget that today, tomorrow, next week, or next year. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vanita Gupta, and I am the President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. We are an organization of over 200...
This bottom one right here. All right, so for speakers here, try not to, destroy the mics here. We'll be very careful. Now, by the way, make sure that you take a look at America's first female speed painter over here, Jessica Haas, who's already creating right here, people. Amazing stuff. Love the freedom to create. And you know, it's interesting, one of the phrases that we hear often is that, from the other side, is gay is the new black. I don't know if you've heard the phrase, but it's been written many times, articles about it, gay is the new black, trying to actually co-opt the blood-bought fight and struggle of the civil rights movement. But there is no comparison. Now, this is not about condemning individuals, but it's condemning an ideology. I'm all about loving people, but there is no comparison. LGBT individuals were not enslaved. They did not have to ride in the back of the bus. They did not have to go to separate and unequal schools. They did not have to pay poll taxes. They did not have to take literacy tests. They were never denied the right to vote. There are a litany of things that separate the LGBT plight, if you will, with the civil rights of black Americans, which is why, actually, I love one of the organizations that I love, Frederick Douglass Foundation. I don't know if you've seen some of these around here, but we got your back, Jack. Frederick Douglass Foundation. Firm believers in just establishing what's true and right. We have a media that they're historically challenged. I don't know if you've noticed. Anybody trust mainstream media here? I do love some of those in mainstream media because there are some who are willing to speak the truth, but sadly a lot of journalists have abdicated their responsibility. They've chosen opinion over objectivity and agenda over accuracy. But we're here to speak the truth. We're here to talk about how we will stand with Jack, we'll stand with Barron and Stutzman, we'll stand with a lot of other creative professionals who don't want the government to dictate where and when they provide their creative expression. And right now I'd like to introduce to you an individual. His name is Tim Gagline. He is the Vice President for External and Government Relations from Focus on the Family. You may have heard of it. It's an obscure group. No, I'm joking. Focus on the Family's done some amazing work, and I invite you, Tim, to share a few words at our Justice for Jack. I just want to hear some Justice for Jack? Justice for Jack? Justice for Jack? All right, Tim, you have the mic.
Good morning, everyone, and greetings from Focus on the Family. In the pediment right there, equal justice under law is what it's all about, and it's why we are all here this morning. In this extraordinary, exceptional country, where the foundation is our Constitution, our fellow countrymen and countrywomen, legally, morally, ethically, are able to have a completely different worldview than we are, to stand publicly in the shadow, even on a shadowy day, of our Capitol dome, and to express their views. They get to express their views for as long as they want, for as loudly as they want. They can say what they would like to say, and no one compels them to shut up. No one compels them to stand down. We love free speech in the United States of America. The primary author of our Constitution, James Madison, perhaps more importantly than anything he ever wrote, is that conscience, he said, conscience is the most sacred of all property. So we're going to test this case, which may be the most important case in the Supreme Court term this term. We are going to test this case about whether James Madison and our founding fathers and mothers, whether they were correct or whether they were incorrect. And we will continue to be unbridled optimists because we believe in the United States Constitution. We believe in religious liberty. We believe in conscience. We believe that this case, rooted in cake of all things, means that the government cannot compel any of us to bake a cake. It's about, that's correct. This case turns on a question of coercion. And we all know that coercion is un-American. So we will continue to celebrate our religious liberty and rights of conscience. We will celebrate our free speech rights. We will celebrate the United States of America. And all of us, as loudly as possible, will shout from First Street in Washington, D.C., "We got your back, Jack." We got your back, Jack. We got your back, Jack. God bless. Shout out your state. Come on.
Places of public accommodations in the United States should remain open to us all. Thank you very much.
One person from Pennsylvania. Come on.
Good morning, everybody.
California. Wow. This is from the United States. It's great.
CEO of Faith and Public Life.
What about Texas?
I'm proud to say our organization is a national network of 40,000 religious leaders.
Indiana, I did not mean to. Indiana's here. I did not hear your state. We thank you for being here. We thank you for standing in the chat. We all love free speech here. There, you know, it's amazing. You don't realize something until it's gone. And many times in life, we take for granted the things around us, the opportunities, the freedoms that we have, and then it's stripped away. And those who come from a country other than the United States, by the way, I am all about exceptionalism. I think the United States is the most
God does not discriminate. God does not discriminate.
That's our theology lesson for the day. Today, the Supreme Court will hear oral arguments on Masterpiece Cakeshop versus Colorado. Supreme Court will hear oral arguments on Masterpiece Cakeshop versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission. My prayer is that our nation's highest court will rule in favor of justice and compassion. Religious liberty is one of our nation's fundamental values. That is why it is already protected in the First Amendment. It is a guarantee of the civil right, not a Trojan horse of discrimination. We reject false choices, using Christianity and religious liberty to justify discrimination runs counter to our faith, which calls us to love our neighbors. Let me say this loud and clear to my fellow Christians. We Christians are being unfaithful when we slam doors in our neighbors' faces. Only by exemplifying the love of God and turning the other cheek and welcoming those who are different from us can we know God and be faithful to Christ's teachings. Half a century ago, we settled the matter that businesses that serve the public must serve everyone on equal terms. I grew up in the South, and I can tell you in the South they say that barbecue is an art form. But Piggy Park was not
not creating an art form, it was creating bigotry and discrimination. We will not go back there today. Granting a business like Masterpiece Cakeshop the right to refuse to have certain customers based on a religious objection would create a sweeping license to discriminate. What a giant step backwards this was. I am proud.
It's amazing how mainstream media has cast this case. They have a particular narrative. They love using the word discriminate. They love using the word bigotry. And what's tragic is that discrimination is against those who want to live out their faith, live out their convictions. And this is not about discriminating against individuals. It's not about people not being allowed to walk into an establishment. Very different than Jim Crow. Served in restaurants, had to go sit in the balcony of a movie theater. This is not the same at all. It's about not
Administration is not standing up for women in terms of birth control, in terms of lesbian workers, so we need to take a stand. And we need to score some backup. In this short year, look at how many things have been rolled back. Just imagine the U.S. government has taken a stand in this case on the side of the business and against us. I'm here with two messages. This use of personal religious beliefs to defend discriminatory business practices has been rejected time and time again by the courts. This court cannot strip away our civil rights protections. All of our civil rights could be in jeopardy. We have come too far from the time when businesses could turn us away based on who we are, when black and brown people could be refused service in the name of religion, when women were denied jobs in the name of religion, denied admissions to organizations. We've come too far from find another lunch counter, find another hotel. Why can't you go down the street to buy a cake? We've come too far from the time when they're out there, but they're not. Interfaith couples have been turned away. Some individuals to allow this business and interfaith couple for who they are is the exact opposite of what this Supreme Court should stand for. Let me go through a few examples. Newspapers argue for free speech to say some jobs are for women and some jobs are for men. That business lost and we won. A law firm that sought to refuse to hire women. That business lost and we won. A chain of barbecue restaurants in South Carolina wanted to turn away black customers because of religion. That business lost and we won.
Black customers because of religion. That business lost and we won. Bob Jones University said he could refuse interracial couples. They lost and we won. And we're here today to say this business cannot turn away a gay couple. They must lose and we must win. As the minister, I'm a daughter of a minister from a religiously conservative immigrant family, as a member of a same-sex couple, I know the feelings of rejection when we're turned away in the name of religion. But imagine, in addition to some of our relatives, one of my wives and I went to get our catering, went to get our outfits, went to get our wedding cards, and we're turned away. And it's not just about weddings. What if our daughter is turned away from a preschool because the religious rights are? What if they're turned away from a
we're committed to ensuring that those rights remain an integral part of our legal protection.
What do you think about that? You agree? There you go. That's for you. We're listening.
We've developed a substantial body of information related to the history, the importance of these rights, as they are integral to maintaining the very fabric of freedom of this nation. Now, these are the very things that Jack Phillips is standing for today. Now, the last conversation that I had with Jack Phillips was about my experience as a newlywed. Jack asked me, he said,
so why are you here today? It's because the opportunity for LGBT older adults to age with the services, support, and dignity they need and deserve is fundamentally a right to when LGBT older adults get a meal at a summer center, enter long-term care, or seek funeral arrangements for a loved one, make no mistake, none of those institutions are making a statement about LGBT people.
So Jack and I laughed at that, but now I realize the profundity of that experience. It's not just about caring about it. It's about the person handling it and the purpose for which she uses it. As Jack knows well, a spatula in my wife's hand or in the hand of any pastry chef is like a paper in the hand of Picasso. It's like piano keys to Mozart's fingers. It's like a microphone in the hands of Andrea Bocelli. It's like a pony who wants to church. It's a very tool that allows them to take their creative ability, their attention to detail, and create an art piece that conveys and communicates particular message. A message that reflects their beliefs, their values, their personality, and their style. Jack and I shared a laugh that we as a nation have more dispatches of men, those that have been lost in the kitchen, have more profound significance. David reminds me of the creative life and the ability to express that speech in your work. It's the very thing that Jack's group is fighting for today, and that's why we're standing. Sadly, these instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people have become more common. At certain times, maybe gradual, maybe silent encroachments of those in power. But in any instance, whether it's grand or gradual, government is wrong to co-opt the business of the organization's weapons in favor of the state's poor people. So it's going to remain one of the best offices the world has ever known.
Those pillars are holding justice under law. Those pillars are holding that up. Hi, I'm Woody, CEO of Gary's House, but I'm also the daughter, sister, mother, and great-grandmother.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
This case is personal, is a personal one to me because we all love and go to y'all cakes and wedding plans. My family went to a restaurant, to the fair, went to the doctor, and even went to a wife. On Saturday, and people use their religion as a license to discriminate. In the 60s, people used race to discriminate against my family, and not only my brother, but to treat it at a hospital that was there. Because of this discrimination, my father drove us, his 5 children and his wife, to a hospital that accepted colored people. However, it was too late to save my mother, and she died that night. Associated with AIDS, the funeral home refused to pick up the body from the hospital. This was after my father had prepaid funeral arrangements. My father, a minister, and our family was devastated. So I know firsthand of the havoc that discrimination can cause on families and individuals. No matter who you are, you and me and everyone here today has a right to equal treatment under law. Many LGBT older adults are not as lucky as I am. I have a wife, I have a family, I have a home, but many LGBT elders can't be here today on the steps of the Supreme Court. So many of us don't have family to rely on and can't get to the grocery store and can't get a meal and can't get to the doctor without the assistance of paid businesses. Unfortunately, many of the people in organizations we rely on as we get older are religiously affiliated. I don't know about you, but I know I don't want to live my life, and I know I can't live my life in a world where I never know if my next meal or my next visit to the doctor might be stopped in its tracks because someone wants to use their religion as a license to discriminate against me because I'm a woman, because I'm black, or because I'm a lesbian. The Constitution does not give the right to landlords, senior centers, nursing homes, or hospitals the right to put a sign outside that says, straight people only. That is not my country, and I know that most of us don't want to live in an America like that either. By being here today, I am giving voice to other LGBT, same-gender loving elders who share their plight and cannot be here today. And I'm asking the Supreme Court to do the right thing and not turn the clock back to the time of earlier legal discrimination, where children lost their mother, a father lost consideration for a burial, and where people lose their quality of life because discrimination is again legalized. Dear justices, do the right thing. Thank you.
families, and everyone in our community. But I am here in both my professional and my personal life.
You don't have to be loud and obnoxious. I'm probably sometimes it is okay to be loud and obnoxious. You know, it's interesting. I love the marriage here. I don't know if you can't really see Renee's standing right here. I don't know if you noticed they have two different views. You know, other people walk the same
for so long in our country, and we will not go back. 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 I am also here in my personal life as a black queer woman. I know how hard it is to.
You got your back, Jack. Let's see, my wife always has
And
my
I know
back.
the saying that, you know, when you're trying to live
That's what you do in marriage.
just because
You stick with each other. You know it's amazing because oftentimes the LGBT
we all have heard that it's more than like
with interracial marriage. It's very different
for
than
many
someone to
black and brown and LGBTQ folks who
It's
will be
interesting to me.
affected if this case is decided wrong. We need to stand up for
race. Race is an immutable characteristic.
What they're doing immediately is comparing the plight with race. Race is an immutable characteristic. It doesn't change. You know, I'm always brown. I didn't decide to be brown. I love being brown, but I'm brown. I was born this way. What's interesting and why there is no comparison is I, as a black, I'm actually biracial, black and white. As a brown individual, I never had to come out of the closet. You know that I'm brown. So right there, you want to compare things, there's just no comparison. It's incomparable. But the point of the matter is, there are a lot of times when people will try to co-opt the civil rights movement. They will try to hijack the civil rights movement and claim discrimination when there really is no discrimination. The real discrimination is against people of faith living out their convictions in the workplace. And so I just want to hear this again, because if you got Jack's back, I want to hear, we got your back, Jack! 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 A little louder, we got your back, Jack! We got your back, Jack! Interestingly, back in 1967 is when the Loving versus Virginia case was heard, and it was heard by the Supreme Court. They finally ruled, it took them, you know, way too many decades after the fact, that it was okay that someone who was brown and someone who was white, someone who was black, someone who was white, they can actually get married. I'm glad the Supreme, occasionally the Supreme Court actually catches up with what is right. And of course, that's what we're praying for here, that they realize what is right, that we have constitutional rights. Actually, the first right enumerated in the First Amendment, you all know what that one is, right? Yes. Has to do with religion. Yes. Because they felt that that was first and foremost important. And then, of course, free speech. And so we have someone else who's going to speak on Jack's behalf. Her name is Victoria Cobb. She is the president of the Family Foundation of the state of Virginia. Victoria, welcome.
Thank you so much. It is really great to be here. On January 16th, 1786, years before the First Amendment of the U.S. Supreme Constitution was ever drafted, the General Assembly of Virginia adopted the Statute for Religious Freedom, written by Thomas Jefferson. That statute became the model for religious freedom and religious protection around the world. Since the very embryonic stages of our republic, the Commonwealth of Virginia has been at the forefront of religious liberty. There is little doubt that our founders recognized that the right to exercise our faith according to our conscience in the public square was foundational to every other freedom, including freedom of speech. They knew that every person will ultimately answer to God, not government. Jefferson penned, and I want to read this specifically to you, Jefferson penned, quote, that religion or duty which we owe our Creator and the manner of discharging it can be directed only by reason and conviction, not by force and violence, and therefore religion according to the dictates of conscience.
Good morning. My name is Mason Davis, and I am the Executive Director, the CEO of Freedom for All Americans. Absolutely delighted to be here today. and my speech won't show up, which, you know, is the way it works on a day like today. We are absolutely honored to be here today. As the CEO of Freedom for All Americans, my organization is absolutely focused on securing full and comprehensive non-discrimination protections for all LGBTQ Americans throughout the United States. And be very clear, this case is not about a cake. This case is about the basic ability to have non-discrimination protections, basic freedom, basic equality for all Americans, including LGBTQ Americans. This is an important day. It's a watershed moment for our community. And as the son and the grandson and the great-grandson of ministers from the Midwest and the great state of Missouri, I am a big proponent for freedom of religion. It's a basic tenet in American society. And yet, I believe, and I grew up learning that religion should be a shield, not a weapon. This is not what freedom of religion meant. The fundamental values at risk in the Masterpiece case cannot be understated. This is about the full dignity, the full respect for all Americans, and the freedom to live and live controlling lives in discrimination. Now, a loss of Masterpiece would be devastating. It would take away the businesses, the untouchable protected
that makes sense.
What's this other thing? There was not much. I mean, there were a lot more, but not terribly bad.
I think it should be applied on.
Just really the question is anybody give up here?
Well, the ones that said the ones that said 5 of that, they got their 5 back. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I did.
Good morning. My name is Rajat Krishnamurthy. I actually represent the 8th Congressional District of Illinois. I want to observe the 3 rules of public speaking. Be short, be sweet, and be gone. And so I only have 3 points I want to make. First, can we please give Dave and Charlie a big round of applause? They're fighting for all of us today. They're fighting for all of us today, and they're inside right now, and they should know that we've got their back. Am I right about that? Second point is this: no matter the excuse, discrimination is discrimination is discrimination. I happen to be a member of a racial minority, an ethnic minority, and a religious minority. And discrimination against any minority is a discrimination against all of us. Am I right about that? You've heard of the term evangelical Christian. I happen to be an evangelical American. I believe in the following values that I preach every day from my seat in the United States Congress, which is this: if you believe in freedom, liberty, equality, hard work, and prosperity, you're an American. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what language you speak at home. It doesn't matter whom you love. And it certainly doesn't matter how many letters there are in your name. There are 18 in mine. All that matters is this: do you live a life of character? Do you raise your children right? Do you work hard and play by the rules? And do you try to give a little something back to your community and country? Because if you do, you are an American. And that is the fundamental question that we have before us in the Supreme Court case, which is everybody entitled to equality? Do you believe in that? Then you believe in what I believe, which is equality today, equality tomorrow, and equality forever. So thank you so much. God bless Dave and Charlie. God bless all of you, and thank you so much for coming out today. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Julie Rogers, and this case, it's really close to home for me. As a lesbian growing up in Southern Baptist circles in Texas, I heard a message consistently that God loved the whole world. But God didn't like people like me. When I came off my family's age of 16, I was taken to an ex-gay organization where I spent almost a decade trying to become straight. My mom had me quit softball so I wouldn't become a lesbian. And I was sent to a Baptist college because gays were supposed to get anywhere safe.
To speak a message
that I was still super gay. I really love Jesus, so I told the Christians in my life about my orientation, and they said, hey, if you'll commit to being single and celibate your whole life, you can stick around in our circle. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be celibate. And I committed myself to trying to sort of live into that system. And I ended up being hired by Wheaton College to work in the chaplain's office. I was made considered a flagship in my local school. And the president began calling me in for meetings in his office during the first week I was there. He was asking consistently during my time there. And he would say, Julie, I know your ministry is going so well on campus. I know students love you. And you see how fruitful it is. But we're getting calls from donors saying they're pulling funding. We have prospective students' parents calling and saying they would never send their kid to Wheaton with someone like you on staff.
So this isn't just freedom of speech, it's also the free exercise of religion. Jack believes marriage is sacred. Jack believes marriage unites a man and a woman. And the state of Colorado is saying, we don't agree with your belief, and you have to violate it. That's wrong. Our Constitution doesn't allow the state of Colorado to force Jack to violate his religious beliefs. And today it's a religious belief about marriage, but it could be a religious belief about diet, about worship, about religious morality. All religious beliefs in this nation deserve First Amendment protection. Whether you're Jewish, Protestant, Catholic, Muslim, Mormon, you have a First Amendment free exercise right in this great nation. And then male and female are trained for each other. And the state of Colorado forces violate your beliefs.
I know for my fellow Christians, they're not going to protect themselves.
Justice for Jack! Next up, I'd like to introduce Len Dio, who's the founder and president of the New Jersey Family Policy Council. Where are you? Are you here? He's making his way. Reverend McCoy was blocking him or something. All right, welcome. Hey, Jersey in the house! All right, New Jersey, we're here. Thank you all for being here, for taking time out of your precious schedule to stand for Jack, because he's standing for others. Excuse me. Hi, honey. Yeah, no, I'm down at the Supreme Court. Yeah, we're standing for Jack.
It's not the same thing.
This is the right thing to do. Yes, I'm sorry to tell you. But it's okay. I love you. All right, that's my wife, Nancy. God bless her. So anyway, we're here because a man, many people have had the guts, courage, faith, this is love. So thank you, Jack. Jack, you got your back. You got your back.
Can't turn again. Time left to repent. You still have hope. To all humans, this is love. But let your heart still beat in your blood. Can you turn again? There's time left to repent. 'Cause you still have a pulse.
Hi, Marion. Next up we have Joseph Washington. All right, welcome.
That's why we submitted a friend of the court brief in support of Charlie Craig and David Mullins. When discrimination is cloaked as religious freedom, it threatens the rights and the religious freedoms of all Americans. And it especially harms LGBTQ people, women, religious minorities, and non-theists. As Americans, we have long agreed that equal access is open to the public and must be open to all. If the Supreme Court rules the wrong way in this case, it will create a huge loophole in our nation's ongoing commitment to ensure justice and equality, and bring back forms of discrimination that activists worked tirelessly to vanquish decades ago. That's unacceptable, and we will not tolerate it. We will not. Love wins.
That stuff was on here, yeah. Okay. Right, they started lining up with the fire. They got it. This is the public part.
We've been watching the Supreme Court this morning as the court is about to hear oral argument in the sexual orientation discrimination case, Masterpiece Cakes versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission. Now, a short time ago, we watched as two of the principals in the case, Charlie Craig and David Mullins, headed into the court. They were greeted by the crowd there. They sued bakery owner Jack Phillips in Lakewood, Colorado, for refusing to make a cake for their wedding reception, which was taking place in Massachusetts. In court documents, Mr. Phillips says he gladly serves people from all walks of life, including individuals of all races, faiths, and sexual orientations. But he cannot design custom cakes that express ideas or celebrate events at odds with his religious beliefs. Well, despite that, lower courts ruled against Mr. Phillips. He brought his appeal to the Supreme Court this morning, and the court is expected to hear the case today and release the oral argument this coming Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. C-SPAN will have it when it is released on Friday. Again, that session set to start in about 15 minutes at 10 Eastern. We will be leaving this scene at that time as the U.S. Senate will be gaveling in. We'll have live coverage of the Senate here on C-SPAN 2.
Absolutely a lie, because who I am and what I am has everything to do with how I do my responsible work. Chief Cochran's one of the best fire chiefs in the nation, but he was denied his freedom of speech by writing a book. Let me just say this. We are right now in one of the greatest attacks.
Religious liberty more important than equal protection under the law. If you own a business open to the public, can you refuse service to someone because you don't like their lifestyle? Because you don't like the person that they hang out with? This case is about two people who were refused service at a business that is open to the public simply because the owner of that business didn't like their lifestyle. This case, ladies and gentlemen, is about whether a gay couple living in America has the same freedoms in this country that everyone else enjoys. Ladies and gentlemen, we've entered into a crucial period in American history where it seems that right is wrong, up is down. It's sunny, but yet it's cloudy. Things have gotten skewed because of claims of fake news. Donald Trump, our president, sells lies that become the truth to his supporters. The Congress of the United States of America can set up a tribunal, the Joint Center for Taxation. They set it up, staff it with people that they want to staff it, and then they impose upon them the requirement of using a certain economic logic to justify tax cuts. And when their analysis comes back, their dynamic scoring analysis comes back showing that the tax cut will create a deficit, then they say that that was wrong. They want you to ignore reality and truth. And that's what we have in this country now from both the executive and the legislative branch. Up is down and down is up. Well, that's the question that is being faced today by the U.S. Supreme Court, whether or not equal protection is equal protection, or whether or not equal protection is equal protection because someone can have religious liberty and decide they want to discriminate against somebody. So religious liberty, ladies and gentlemen, does not trump equal protection, and that's what this case is all about. This is what our fight is in this country. What's right is right, and it's not right to discriminate against people on the basis of their sexual orientation. And so my grandmama always said that right wins out over wrong, and I still believe that. Do y'all believe it? Well, because you're standing out here for what's right, I believe that you're on the right course. If we continue our fight, we will always win.
So thank you all so much for being here today, and now I'm going to turn it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Good job.
Good morning. I'm Congressman Alan Lowenthal from the great state of California. Great state of California. 47th Congressional District. I'm the Vice Chair of the Equality Club.
I was a little not too jazzed about that, you could say. But the more we talked to her, the more I realized how passionate she was about her work. And she talked to us, she asked us our story as a couple and our relationship. And I realized that she would be using her artistic eye and her instincts and her creativity not to simply snap photos at our wedding, but to create the most important physical link between our future and that single day. So we cut checks for a lot of things while we were planning our wedding, and I realized that there's a huge noticeable difference between the money that you spend on purchasing alcohol or scheduling a limo and the meetings that we had with the woman who designed our cake and my aunt who did our flowers, and especially our photographer. So while I support religious freedom laws on an intellectual basis, I realize that we need a deeper commitment to artists and to protecting them. And this is why we ask those who call religious freedom a license to discriminate to step away from a second and to realize the difference between purchasing alcohol or renting a car, which is just a simple exchange of goods, and compensating another person for using their artistic and transcendent and uniquely human creativity to help celebrate a marriage.
Yeah.
Jack's case shows us that it's not these things. It's not the cake and flowers and photos. That's up for debate. But it's the incredible capacities that we have as human beings and the freedom that allows us to develop our talents in accord with our morality. To sue artists like Jack out of business is political censorship of art. And frankly, it's terrifying that it happens in the United States of America. I disagreed politically with my wedding photographer, but she probably doesn't have a problem with photographing a gay wedding. But I don't want my political beliefs to get in the way of how she practices her art. In John Paul II's letter to artists, he tells us that at the beginning of Genesis, God is an exemplar for both artists and for married couples. Both participate in a divine creative act when bringing life into this world and when giving form and meaning to the material that God has created in this universe. It is a scandal to some that Jack could have so closely united those two beliefs in his work. The wisdom of God is foolishness in our world, but we can all count ourselves fortunate that we could have captured a glimpse of it in Jack. Thank you. Wow. Justice for Jack!
And we must guard against the creeping shadow of discrimination and hatred. We have defeated it in the past, but we cannot for 1 second take for granted that those past successes will continue. We must always assume that these rights that we cannot assume, we cannot assume that these rights that have been won are immutable. We cannot assume that. There are those who will try, and as we see today, are trying to take those rights away from all of us. This case is about drawing a line in the sand and saying, we will not let you move us backward. We have struggled as a nation to move forward, as we've seen before, step by step. And I, for one, will not stand idly by those who
supported Jack's First Amendment rights of free speech and free exercise of religion. We believe that Jack, like all Americans, should be able to live and work according to his deeply held beliefs. People of faith, especially artists and creative professionals, should have the freedom to create artwork that is pleasing to God. We live in a pluralistic society that should make room for people with differing viewpoints. Justice Kennedy in the Observatory movement from 2015 said that
Hey, good catch. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here with y'all. Our civil rights should not be up for debate. Every American deserves equal protection under the law. And these very basic rights, anchored by our values of equality, liberty, and freedom, are absolutely essential to the strength of this nation. It is why we are the greatest nation, the greatest democracy on the face of the earth. No one in this country should ever be treated as a second-class citizen just because of who they love, what God they pray to. That goes against our very values and our laws. For decades, public accommodation laws have protected individuals from being turned away from a business just because of what they look like, their religion, or who they are. This case is no different. Every American deserves equal access to participate in our economy, no matter their sexual orientation or the gender of their partner. I know this fight has not been easy, and it will continue to be a difficult one. But I know that you are playing an important part in the mission to advance the civil rights of LGBTQ Americans all across the country. Your work is essential to the strength of our nation, especially as a number of our nation's leaders, including our president, continue their attempts to roll back progress we've made on civil rights. Progress that many Americans have risked their lives for, bled for, and even died for. So I want you to know that I will be there to fight right alongside you until all LGBTQ Americans have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. Thank you for letting me be here. Thank you for showing your support. We all must keep working to advance and safeguard our civil rights. And even though there's a lot of work to do, especially now, we can do this together, and we can oppose the forces of tyranny together. Thank you for being here, and thank you for letting me join you.
Freedom for all. Up next, I'd like to introduce to you Alana Mazel,
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bernie Stackelberg, and I'm the Executive Vice President of External Affairs at the Center for American Progress. 43 years ago, pioneering feminist and progressive champion Bella Abzug helped introduce the Equality Act, the first federal bill that sought to outlaw discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. As many of you know, Bella was known for her large collection of colorful hats. And while she and I may not share a commitment in her taste and fashion, we do share an unbending commitment to achieving social justice on behalf of all people, no matter who they are or who they love. Our country has made incredible strides. Our country has made incredible strides since Bella first proposed the Equality Act in 1974. But we all understand how much further we still have to go. And that is why I am so proud.
We deserve that freedom because we all deserve that freedom. This is the essence of America's promise to its people. And it's usually the second reason that we're here with you today, and it's to help set the
the record straight about how religious freedom is being perceived today. The original decision against Jack invoked the Holocaust to justify penalizing him. Yeah, the decision claimed that the religious freedom that would allow Jack not to bake a cake is the same discrimination that caused all sorts of historical atrocities, including the mass persecution and murder of many of our families in Europe 70 years ago. This is not true. And it's unfortunate to us that a national tragedy is being misused this way. It also shows a deep misunderstanding of the role of religious freedom in this wonderful country of ours. In America, our families rebuilt from the Holocaust and from a history of persecution in every country we've ever lived in. The religious freedom that allows Jack not to bake a cake is the freedom that prevents atrocity. That promotes coexistence in disagreement, and that allows for the flourishing of individuals and communities alike. Like so many other minorities, the Jewish community has created a life and a thriving society in America. It is unique in the story of our 2,000 years of exile. We are grateful for it, and we want to protect this way of life for ourselves and for all of our fellow citizens. So with gratitude for the liberties that have given us so much bounty and a deep belief in their justice for all, we stand with Jack and with you to protect a society where we can aspire to live in our highest ideals. Rabbi Rockland.
I just wanted to offer a short prayer from the Jewish community. You know, there are 3 separate Jewish amicus briefs, 3 separate Jewish legal briefs filed in this case for Jack, from a community that represents 1.8% of the American population. You know, this is unprecedented in terms of Jewish legal activity. This is an issue that for traditional Jews is of the utmost importance. You know, and in many ways, it's unfortunate almost that we have to be here in America arguing that the First Amendment means what it says and says what it means. But you know, there is a positive side to this, a very positive side to this. You know, this is an opportunity for Americans of different faiths and of no faith in particular who are supportive of the First Amendment to get together beyond religious differences, to get together beyond differences in other respects, and to support what makes this nation so great. And as the psalmist wrote in the book of Psalms, behold how good it is, how pleasant it is when brothers dwell together. Jews, Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, this is the kind of thing that you're the only one liberty support and several other I haven't tried to I'm not trying to
Yes, exactly. Oh,
Last month, we joined former Representative Tony Homo, one of the authors of the NDA, and 10 other disability rights.
As we leave this scene here on C-SPAN 2, we want to let you know you can continue to watch it live online on our website, cspan.org. Supreme Court justices about to hear this sexual orientation discrimination case. The oral argument will be available on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll have it for you then on our companion network, C-SPAN.